What's good? What is up? How we feeling? How we doing? It is the kid, not a mush. Week 3, NFL football. I'm fired the hell up. I'm fired the hell up. How y'all doing? How we feeling? What do we have going for Thursday night? I know a bunch of people are on this over. I don't know, you guys. I don't know if I'm going to be able to rip the over. In fact, I know I'm not because I took the under. I don't care. I don't care. I'm taking the under. I cannot be that contrarian just quite yet. I'm not ready to hop in. I'm not ready to hop in. What I did do that I know I'm going to get yelled at is I took the over for Pittsburgh over 7.5 in the first half at plus chicken. Had to do it. Had to do it. They can get 9. They can get 10. Sure. Sure. I'm excited to be here with y'all, man. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for another week of some beautiful NFL action. Pat yourselves on the back. We're one day closer to the weekend. We got college action tonight. We got NFL action tonight. We're doing fun things. We're doing fun things. Does it look like I'm coming through a potato right now? Can you guys see me okay? How we looking? How we feeling? I'm really excited, man. I got a big brain that's going to join me here in a little bit. Austin Swaim from FanDuel, stud. We're very lucky to have him. Can't wait to see what he is seeing on his end as far as the action is concerned. But how about we do a little bit of a recap? How about we do a little bit of a recap? Because damn, it felt good to be on the right side of some dogs. Now, Mima, she left the door open with that afternoon slate, as she's going to do. I commented on it while we were sweating it out. But week 1 and week 2, these backdoor covers are huge, which means watch the sweat with us because I hit on 2 live bets. It was the Commanders at plus 10.5. They slid right in. Come on now. And it was the Bengals at plus 4.5, and they slid right in. So we'll take that. But a quick recap, because I believe I gave out 6 of my favorite plays last week. Now, my favorite play of the week, one that I pitched Friday on stream, was the Rams at minus 10.5. And Lord knows Mima was just welcoming the Falcons in. That did not hit. But how about those Jets? How about Gang Green slipping and sliding right in that back door? That happened. Plus 6.5. They got the dub. The Jags plus 3.5. They handled business. They certainly handled business. And Miami Dolphins. I'm telling you guys right now, I've been saying it since before the season started. Mike McDaniel is doing some crazy things down in South Beach. Mike McDaniel is doing some crazy things down in South Beach. We hit on the under between the Patriots and the Steelers, but we did not hit on the over between the Panthers and the Giants. And if anyone watched that game, I believe the first 6 trips to the red zone between the two teams all ended in points, but it was 3 field goals aside, and it was a touchdown aside. Absolutely horrible. Chat, how we doing though, huh? How the hell are we feeling? We got Right Willie in the mix. Right Will, good to see ya. Don't show your face, but good to see ya. FedEx Milk, what's happening? I'm feeling sideways today like Lance's angle. Yeah, man, that was tough. I thought he got hit in the chest or something, or maybe fucked up his hip, which could be a much longer rehab. But it was his ankle. It was his ankle. Hovey, what's going on? I want to be sick. I want to be a sick fuck and take Browns as my survivor pool pick. Week 3, I'm not willing to do that. We'll get to survivor picks later on, but I'm not willing to do it. Not willing to do it. Let's get it. Let's get it, Frozen Penguin. Those damn Jets definitely slid right back in. Jenks with the good vibes. How we doing? Lockmyth making an appearance. Lockmyth, dude. I was thinking about you earlier today, man. Miss you. Love you. How you doing? How you doing? Running backs having a big night tonight. I think they're going to have to. But as I said at the end of stream earlier today, I think the quarterbacks are going to have to throw the ball a bit. So we'll see what's happening there. We'll see what's happening there. But why don't we bring on the man, the myth himself, Mr. Austin Swaim.
How you
Austin,
doing,
how goes
Mush?
it, my friend?
Mush, my friend, you are the king of vibes because I was down a minute ago. It's kind of dreary here in Denver today, but my God, you got me all pumped up, ready for some TNF, and ready to talk some football.
Let's go, baby. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. And you know what? A bad day in Colorado is still a good day, I would have
Oh
to
yeah.
say. Beautiful place to be. Beautiful place to be. Hey, Austin, man, we see the FanDuel background there, but if you wouldn't mind, why don't you kind of give us a little bit of background on who you are, what you do, where you're from, and then we'll kind of dive right into things here.
I'm glad you gave me this opportunity because I'll pop on with Krabs for like 5 minutes and I'll get roasted by chat because of my background, thinking that I'm on here to sell you bad picks from FanDuel. Really,
Sure.
my job is I'm an editor for numberfire.com. So it's actually an analytics website. It was bought by FanDuel as Daily Fantasy Sports was coming around a few years ago. FanDuel has never given me a single pick. I promise. They've never touted one pick. They haven't told me to talk about any specific games. My job is simply to use math and to use data to make more informed sports betting decisions. Now, am I perfect? Do I get every pick right? No, but it's about trying to teach people the process. So we take it a step further. Instead of me giving you, I don't know, Browns -4 or whatever it is tonight, the reasoning as to why I got there, as far as I'm looking at pace numbers, I'm looking at offensive defensive line matchups, I'm looking at pressure rates, I'm looking at wide receiver route trees and all sorts of different things to try to make an informed decision rather than just kind of going with your gut on that. And if you take anything from me that you look at when you're going to make your bets, then I've done my job. And that's what FanDuel wants, because FanDuel, every single day we get peppered with responsible gaming, and part of responsible gaming and sports betting is being informed before you go and place that wager. If you just chase a really bad bet where you don't know anything's going on, that's when your bankroll starts to dip. That's when bad things happen. That's when you stop being customers of FanDuel. So my job from FanDuel is to make more informed sports bettors, because they're making the bet that whoever sees this, we're not going to go perfect, but you're having a much better betting experience. So that's my job, and that's why I get the corporate shore on Crab streams and stuff. But um,
Sure.
I love this community. I've known now Trent for about a year as well, and you guys rock. And I love anyone that loves to bet anything and everything, because I'm a multi-sport guy too. I started betting maybe, when I turned 18. I've been into spreads since I was like 14 or 15. Honestly, listening to Colin Cowherd's show every day when I was like 14 or 15, working in a
Yeah,
library.
man.
So, I love sports betting. I love this community. I am not a FanDuel shill. And in fact,
So you're saying here on the record, you're not an informant.
yep, I'm not I promise, I swear on my mama, I'm not an informant. I told Krabs this the first time I came on his stream. If they were giving me picks and like they had the magical answers to what was going to happen, I'm taking that stuff because I am allowed to bet on other sports books. I'm turning around. I'm going to Cabo. I'm not here with Mush right now. In fact,
That's what I've
I
been
have
saying.
betting and DFS restrictions that I can't play. It's all in the interest of making it fair for you guys, and teaching you guys how to be a better sports better.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think it's so funny when people feel like, oh, this anyone's working for the books. Man, the books are setting the lines, but fluke shit happens to the books just like it happens to us. The books take L's every day and every which way.
Yep.
And that's the truth. No one has a crystal ball. No one has the crystal ball. But it does come down to numbers. And that's why I wanted to bring you on, because some of us bet as casual fans, some of us do our due diligence and then some. But at the end of the day, we're all just trying to make a couple bucks. And
Yep.
if you can take little bits from cappers across the industry, try and work with models, look at systems, and then from there create your own insight and create your own angle,
Yep.
go for it. You know what I mean?
That's right.
I last year, before I really started diving into becoming a better gambler, a better sports bettor, I was betting like a fan. I was a Joe Schmo. I
Mm-hmm.
was saying, all right, this team is better, so we're gonna go with that, right? I was, maybe looking at some different angles, but I didn't really take my time and dive in until the last year plus, and here we are. And everything is going good so far, man. So, how's NFL season treated you thus far, man?
Well, so my biggest thing is that I'm primarily a spread better with NFL. I have a
Okay.
lot of season long fantasy football stuff too. I every single week over on numberfire.com/NFL, I make 5 picks against the spread. And the reason why I do that, there's a certain contest I can't name in Las Vegas where you make 5 spread picks a week. Very famous hotel out in Las Vegas that does it. It very common. You see media personalities picking 5 spreads. Last year in said contest, had I been able to enter, I would have been 97th percentile in that Superbook contest. And so I love betting NFL spreads. It's one of my favorite things to do. It's almost really like a game of public perception more so than it is betting on sports. And there is a lot that goes into how these lines are set. Honestly, FanDuel doesn't tell me as much as I want to know. And I really don't have access. They have that under vault and key about analytics traders and things like that, where I don't have the window into that. I'm just thinking like a sharp in Vegas, and that's always been my goal. And so I'm 6-4 so far in that contest, 2 winning weeks. And I'd like more 4-1 and 5-0 weeks, but at the end of the day, if you go 3-2 all year, every single week, you're going to hit 60% of your bets. You could probably retire if you have a big enough unit size, and you'll be 95th percentile or better at Superbooks. So that's the
Oh
goal,
yeah.
and it's going well so far.
We love it. We love it. You know what? Before we look at the full slate, we might as well get your angle on this Thursday night. So anyone that hasn't decided exactly which way they're gonna go, they can lock it in. I had to sprinkle. I mentioned I was taking my little morning walk down by the water, listening to my podcast, and a little vision dropped down. And I think someone on some defense is getting in the end zone tonight at plus 213.
I like that.
Worth a sprinkle, quarter of a unit to bring back half a unit. Why the hell not? I think these defenses are capable. I think these quarterbacks are very capable of giving the ball over to the defense. But what would be your play sidewise between the Steelers and the Browns, knowing that it's pretty split on public, but the line has started moving towards Pittsburgh, I believe.
Yeah. It's because this line is garbage. And why I say that is because you have a low scoring contest between these two teams. The number 4 doesn't signify very much. 4 is a much more valuable number when you're expecting more touchdowns. Whereas I'm looking more so in field goal increments when I see a total like 38. So I actually took an alt spread this morning. I took Cleveland minus 6.5. So obviously a 7-point touchdown difference would cover it. I think that came back around like plus 170 something. I don't know exactly what that's going right now. You know, the good news about sportsbooks now is a lot of them let you choose your spread. So you do not have to be locked into the minus 110 roughly on either side. And I like Cleveland to win. It's because PFF's single biggest advantage this week in any game is Cleveland's offensive line running the ball on Pittsburgh. And I trust those guys at PFF. I think they know what they're talking about. And I see it as well. Cleveland gashed the Jets last week, and Pittsburgh had the 5th worst rushing efficiency defense. Obviously, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, I think they control the pace of the game and they win it by a touchdown. So I've seen a lot of Steelers buzz, but I kind of prefer taking the Browns with a little bigger number there.
You mentioned the rushing attack of Cleveland. You have Chubb. I mean, do you ever consider like the lottery ticket, like first touchdown score? Because Chubb at plus 400 isn't a bad option in my opinion. As far as props are concerned, they're giving us Chubb. Let's see what it's at right now. Chubb at 86.5.
Okay.
What's your take on maybe Chubb getting in the end zone? Chubb over 86.5.
So Chubb is an interesting guy to bet his props because he is an unbelievably effective player. Whereas if Kareem Hunt was not going to play tonight, I would have a much better projection of his workload and I could make an easier argument. Now, 86.5 to me is like right on the nose. I would have thought it would have been around 90 just by looking at rushing efficiency data. Cleveland's a favorite. So you factor that in that if you trust that, then Chubb is going to have a positive script to operate in. I would side with the over with that. But about the first touchdown things, I don't typically bet those a lot. It's probably because I'm too nerdy for my own good and don't have enough fun. You know, maybe occasionally I'll sprinkle like 0.2, 0.3 units on those off like my tracking. But
Mhm.
It's a lot of circumstantial. There are actually guys that specialize in that type of betting where they look at opportunity shares and probabilities and what the first drive play description looks like for each team. I don't get that deep into the weeds, so I don't feel like it's a
Yeah.
very profitable market for me. But if you believe Cleveland's going to get the ball first, then Nick Chubb at plus 400 is a great bet
Sure.
because they're going to
Sure.
lean on him in the red zone. He's had an unbelievable red zone role this year, which is different than last year. But I don't typically get that deep into the weeds.
My guy Vsauce is, I would say, he entered the scene as the prop guy. He really does try and stay in those weeds, and he may be joining us a little bit later to talk some props with us.
Cool.
But as far as like timeshare and opportunities and all of that, that's something that he certainly does dive in. So you are on kind of an alt spread for the Browns at -6.5 at plus money.
Yep.
Not too bad. Not too bad. I could certainly see that happening. Talk about kind of a surprising game. We're going to now move on to Sunday, and it's this Houston-Chicago game. Now, Houston has looked pretty damn good. I'm not going to lie. And Chicago has looked absolutely abysmal. They can't move the ball, and Houston really has not let teams do much on offense. 34% of the handle is on Chicago covering 3, but more than half of the bets are on them. I'm leaning heavily towards betting on the Texans. Are you seeing it the same way? Are you seeing it kind of the Texans should come out on top here, or do the Bears remain undefeated at home?
So one of my natural processes when I'm looking to evaluate a spread, it's probably something that you've heard before called the zigzag theory. The best spot that you can expect to target value is a team that did not cover last week. So they are seen as underachieving by the public against a team that did cover last week. And so then you look at that dynamic here. Chicago didn't cover last week in Green Bay. They probably could have if they got that touchdown called correctly for Fields, if you remember. And then Houston, I wouldn't say they necessarily looked stellar in Denver. Denver just didn't have enough offense to pull away. So that's what makes that cap. It's so interesting you pluck that game out because that's when I talk to sharps as well, like other sharps in the community, that is one that they're having issues with because normally you take the team that didn't cover and you take them at home. But the thing is that the situation is flipped. Usually in this spot, you'd see Chicago as the underdog. Instead, now I think at some spots you're laying 3 points with them.
3 points.
I would be inclined to more so take Houston and the points on the road. I think they're the better team. So really, you think of it this way, a lot of sharps agree. Home field advantage in the NFL is worth about 3 points. Some are better, like Denver's is better because of the altitude, because of the crowd noise. Seattle's is better, and some are worse, like the Chargers. It's roughly 3 points, though. So they're saying these teams are, when you read that line, these teams are even on a neutral field. I don't believe that. I think Houston's better. So I would take the Texans as well.
That's where it comes in, where you're like, all right, am I betting as a fan, someone that watches a lot of football? Texans by far, I think. Well, I wouldn't say by far, but they do look like the better team. They look way more competent on offense. I think Justin Fields has attempted 28 passes so far this season.
Oh, I don't even know if it's that high. Oh no, you are correct. Yeah, he's got 15 completions is what I was thinking.
15 completions,
not
28 passes. Texans did a pretty solid job last week containing Javonte Williams, who looked great in week 1. One of my favorite plays, I mean, it's also very obvious, though, would be the under. And so it's kind of like, well, everyone's going to be hammering the under. You go the over. I think when it comes to public plays and kind of fading the public, I prefer to do that on sides rather than totals. But I think my favorite play in that is probably the under. But I do like Houston to go get it done. I do like Houston to go get it done.
What you're doing there, Mush, is you're putting it together correctly where if you expect a game to go under its projected total, then those points with Houston become inherently more valuable. So you have to think of it that way, is that if I'm picking the over here, those points are less valuable because there's going to be more of them. I agree with that comment as well. Lovie Smith revenge game in Chicago.
Yep. And that's UPS Paul, a Chicago diehard.
Yep.
I don't know. I might be misspeaking, but I feel like UPS Paul may have a Bears logo tattooed on him somewhere. Moving right along, brother. Talk about two teams that I didn't think would be in this situation. We have the Las Vegas Raiders
Mhm.
at 0-2 going into Tennessee and facing the 0-2 Titans. I had the Raiders -5 last week because I'm really not a believer in Cliff Kingsbury and the Cardinals.
Yep.
Mima let them back in the back door at the end. They ended up losing the game
Yep.
outright. Just the most unfortunate ending you could imagine. It all lined up for a cover, and then they came in the back door, and then went to overtime, forced turnover on downs, and Hunter Renfrow fumbled the ball twice. Vrabel is a good coach, and I think Josh McDaniel. It's so unfortunate to see this team at winless so far. We're seeing the public absolutely hammering the Raiders to cover
Mhm.
3 on the road. We're seeing the public hammering the Raiders at -130 because honestly, Tannehill has looked like crap.
Yep.
The Titans have not looked good. What are you seeing, and do you have any money on this game as of now?
So I do not, and full disclosure here, the reason why is because I am a Las Vegas Raiders fan. So
Okay.
I stay away from my team, but
All
you picked a
right.
good subject here. Very interesting game because normally the formulaic play here, you take an 0-2 team, you put them at home as an underdog, they cover about 65% of the time in week 3. So the natural play
Can you
here
say
would
that
be,
again?
what'd you say?
Can you say that 65% cover? You said a
Yeah.
home dog.
So if you have an 0-2 team that is then a home underdog in week 3, that team
Yeah,
covers about
right. Yeah.
65% of the time.
Mhm.
Now, formulaically, that is absolutely the play. What is so difficult about this is because everything that I'm researching is actually on the public side here. And I imagine the public handicap of this game is the Raiders were supposed to be this electric offense. They have Derek Carr, Devontae Adams, Darren Waller. It was supposed to be this fireworks show. They're not going to 0-3. And like you said, Ryan Tannehill looks like crap.
Mhm.
So that is the public cap to me. How I see this game, Tennessee's offensive identity is broken. Derrick Henry, his rushing efficiency this year is in the toilet. It used to be he'd, break 4 or 5 tackles from the line of scrimmage. He's not getting away from those guys anymore, and he's hit that magic age 27 for running backs. Big trouble in Tennessee when you especially consider Taylor Lewan is going to be out at least for this game, might be out for the year. And so what does
Yeah.
that turn this team into? It's kind of the shell of the team we saw without Henry last year, but they don't have Dante Foreman anymore. He's in Carolina, and Henry is not performing even as well as Foreman did last year. So Tennessee is
Hilliard's
struggling.
out now too.
Yeah, I really. And then what do you think the Raiders? The strength of the Raiders' defense is their pass rush. Max Crosby,
Mhm.
Chandler Jones,
Mhm.
Taylor Lewan
Mhm.
gone. Ryan Tannehill, one of the highest sack percentage quarterbacks over the last 5 years in the NFL. You could put if you want to put Nash's comment up, stay away game. This is the ultimate stay away game to me because everything in my brain, everything in my process says Raiders -2, but it is the public side. It is the square side to take the Raiders with the laying 2 points, I believe, on the road here. And it's not the side I typically would want to take. I'd want to take that home team, but I'm afraid Tennessee might just be broken.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stay away from it. I think
Yeah.
that I might have to back the Raiders again. Are you a Bay Area guy?
No.
Okay, that's good.
Seriously, I wish I had a more articulate explanation other than I saw the Raiders on TV when I was like 7 and their uniforms were
Yeah,
dope.
100%, 100%. And that's typically as a 7-year-old how you choose
Yep.
your favorite teams. My family's had season tickets to the 49ers since their inaugural year. I was
Yep.
born and raised at Candlestick Park, but when I was 4 years old, I loved the Dallas Cowboys. I
Yeah.
loved them. I loved them, and I forced my mom to buy me a hat. But then by the time I went to my first game, when I think I was 5 or 6, hat was in the trash, and it was 49ers, bang, bang, Niner gang all day.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, chat, we're seeing a lot of people saying Malik Willis time is coming soon. As a Titans fan, bet the Raiders. Titans are not a good football team. I lean Raiders, but can't trust either. I think, to be honest, it's going to go either way. I don't even think it's going to be a close game. So if I end up betting it, I might follow suit and do something like a Raiders alt line because they could just blow them out and they could really embarrass them at home.
Yeah, that's not a bad way to do it because then you'd get giant juice on the Raiders in that particular script. The thing, the comment there, Titans are not a good football team. One of the biggest things I would give people who are maybe less experienced with spread betting: never bet teams. Always bet numbers,
Yeah.
always bet
Yeah.
matchups, always bet situations. Because if you remember as a Titans fan, the Titans completely blew the doors off of the Chiefs last year. It was 27-3. Mahomes looked like he had never played professional football before. If you had gone
Mhm.
away from the Chiefs the next week, you would have missed out on a cover. So you always have to look
Sure.
at numbers. You have to look at you're betting lines much more so than you're betting teams and how they look.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Talking about not betting lines or teams,
Yeah.
how in the world are the Colts less than one score of a dog against the Chiefs? We saw three, maybe four 10-point spreads last week. I don't think we have any that are 10 points. This is one that absolutely should be a 10-point spread if we had three or four of them last week. Michael Pittman, is he going to come back?
Mhm.
Who knows what's going on there? The Chiefs and the Colts both failed to cover last week.
Yep.
I tweeted this out yesterday or the day before, but I am this close from having to bet on the Colts to cover 5.5. This should be a 10-point spread. 5.5 points. The Colts lost by 24 to the Jags last week.
Yep.
Kansas City didn't cover. I believe they did get the win. No, did against the Chargers. I think they still got the win
Yep. The
Thursday
Chargers
night.
backdoored there with Josh Palmer
They
at
did
the
that.
last
Yes,
minute.
yes. They backdoor cover, but they beat them by 4.
Mhm.
So now they go into Indianapolis. Do you have money on the game? What are you seeing? What are you thinking, brother?
Well, so I haven't finalized my 5 picks. I will have that in my column tomorrow. I already
Okay.
actually wrote up a blurb on the Colts plus 5.5, and then I deleted it because I have a hard time justifying this pick based on the way these two teams have looked so far. But I want to take you back in a time machine a few years ago to when Frank Reich and the Colts were in Arrowhead and Sunday night, and they shut down Mahomes completely. Jacoby Brissett had a couple of rushing touchdowns in that game. I I think they are a good matchup. And the problem is that we haven't seen Indianapolis's defense at its full form. Shaquille Leonard has missed the first 2 games. He will be back. That's Darius Leonard, by the way. He has a name change
Yep.
in the offseason,
Yep.
if you don't know
Yep.
who I'm talking about. But huge cog in the middle of their defense. And then you saw they actually moved the ball pretty well on Houston in week 1. Pittman out in week 2. It was a disaster. Both of those guys are trending toward playing. They're really kind of nonchalant about it right now. I assume that is strategic in purpose.
Yeah.
But this line is absolutely wild as far as how it's moving. I saw it get up to 7 in some spots. It was 7, I think, Monday or Tuesday. Then it was down to 6.5, down to 5.5, back to 6.5, and I believe it now sits at 5.5 in most spots. Really, I think this is either Colts or pass. I do not want to be the fish laying 5.5 with the Chiefs here. And I'll be honest, I do not have a very consensus opinion on the Chiefs. I have a ticket on them to finish 4th in the AFC West this year. It hasn't looked good so far because they've gone through, they beat the Chargers. They blew out Arizona, but a guy I really trust, Joe Redeman, if you want to follow him at the IDP guy on Twitter, he told me Arizona was just playing the exact wrong defense to deal with Mahomes, whereas he did struggle more with that cover 2 high again last week. And I assume that's what Indianapolis will play. It's one of their default packages. I like the Colts here because Kansas City struggled last year against the run. We haven't really been able to see it because the Chargers don't do that immensely well. The Cardinals couldn't even have a chance because they were down 14-0 before you could blink. Jonathan Taylor in the Indianapolis running game, I think they control this outright. I think the way I'm going to back it, I'm probably going to end up leaving it out of my Superbook picks, but I'm going to take the Colts money line.
There we
Because
have it.
this is an 0-1-1 team. They're desperate. Their season comes down to this. Jacksonville is way better than anybody expected. They need this game, and I believe that they can grab it.
I mean, let's also stay back in that time machine. But isn't this a Colts team that started 1-4 last year and still went on that run? And I believe they made the playoffs and did just fine. So they may start off slow, but this isn't a team that is down and out. They aren't used to losing. They are used to adversity, and especially on defense, which is certainly their strong suit. I think they're prepared for the task. Coming into this off a 24-point loss to the basement dweller of the AFC South for the last since their culmination, the Jaguars. I will not be shocked if the Colts keep it close, if the Colts win. But I can definitely ride with the Colts.
Yep.
Moving on to maybe my favorite game. Wow, there are just so many good games. but this is AFC East. This is the powerhouse of the NFL through 2 weeks. Buffalo Bills are heading down to Miami, coming off a very impressive game last week, going up against the Dolphins, who did the damn thing in Baltimore and came back.
Yep.
What's your take on the game? And do you think maybe the public could be a little bit love drunk on the Dolphins, and the Bills just keep rolling? Or what are your eyes set on here, brother?
So I don't think any team in the NFL, at least for the foreseeable future, is going to be more love drunk on than the Bills. They are the public's favorite team right now. They look dominant on both sides of the ball. Josh Allen, I mean, when you look at his last 4 games, it's just absurd. It's like video game like. And then really, I think I like to put myself in an alternate reality where maybe Buffalo struggled a little bit more on Monday and then Miami ended up getting blown out. What would this line look like? Buffalo probably would be laying more than a touchdown. Very interesting line movement. I saw today, just prepping my picks for this weekend, was up to Miami plus 6.5, now down to Miami minus 5.5 in a lot of spots. So, but yet you have over 80, I believe it's 80+% on the bets and the handle on the Bills here. They're going to be the public side pretty much until they lose. So I can't read a whole lot into that, but really the question you have to ask yourself is how much do you buy into what you saw last week? Because there's no doubt that the Bills are a better pass defense. They're currently number 2 in the number Fire's adjusted pass defense rankings behind Tampa Bay. Do you believe that Tua can get that done, or will it look more like the first half last week where Tua was struggling? He threw a ball into coverage and it got intercepted. I kind of am on the side that I think that was a bit of a fluke. I don't think Tua is going to play that well, but I'm a little split because I also think the Bills are incredibly overvalued right now. It's impossible for them not to be because everybody thinks they're just going to blow every team out by 30 points at this point. I'll give you a stat here, Mush. The last 4 teams that won and covered by at least 20 points, they all lost against the spread in week 3. So they opened up the season with 2 massive wins covered by at least 20 points. Every single one of them lost against the spread. The last 4 teams going back to 2006.
Those are devil horns, brother. I already have money on the Dolphins money line, but you know what we're doing right now, brother. You know what we're doing? We're just gonna go ahead and toss an honest quality unit back on the spread to go with him on the money line because it'd be a shame not to. It'd be a shame not to. And I'm a huge proponent of Mike McDaniel, man. I've been hyping this guy up all summer. No one really knows about him, but you can call him the Robin to Kyle Shanahan's Batman. Their coaching careers in the NFL are exactly the same. They've been mano-a-mano everywhere that they've gone. And those are several stops for those 2 guys. But he's a genius, and it's been incredible watching him design the 49ers offense and then take pieces around the league or from us and insert them into Miami on a team that already had the Brian Flores mentality on the defensive side of the ball. They're going to have a huge year, and I'm not surprised by them being 2-0, and I'm not surprised by their opportunity to take a dub at home against Buffalo and really say, hey, you guys need to start fucking with us because we're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere.
A couple of things on that. Short week for the Bills is something to note as well. They played on Monday, whereas Miami got done early Sunday afternoon. And the second point on that I would make, McDaniel's a perfect fit for Miami. I've been a Heat fan since I was a kid. I know the sports market well. I listen and I read to beat writers. He's kind of a quirky, funny guy, and it's not a serious sports town. It's a very different culture than like a Philadelphia or a New York where he is a perfect fit. He's very funny. He's very personable at interviews. He's a perfect identity for what I would imagine a Dolphins football coach looked like. And he's brilliant. In fact, I was watching film breakdowns earlier this week. I'm sure you've seen Theo Ash on TikTok. I want to shout him out because he does great stuff on there. Literally wide open pockets that Waddle and Tyreek Hill create with their speed. I don't know what kind of pass defense can stop that type of protectionary coverage.
Well, when you're bringing out your offensive personnel, and I believe you have 2 running backs, the defense has to respond and bring out their personnel where you're going to have a bunch of heavy guys running around, and then you split them out 5 wide. What are you going to do then? That's why you see those pockets that are wide open for the Dolphins, and that's why you see so many highlights of the 49ers over the last few years where guys seem totally wide open, broken coverage, whatever it is. It's not. It's play design and it's genius. So we have people that are hammering Browns Steelers spread, what to do. Austin here is on the Browns minus 6.5.
Yeah, alt spread.
And I would say go with that. Not the minus 6.5, but everyone is with the Browns. We're going to move right along, man. Detroit and Minnesota, man. How great is it watching Detroit put up numbers like this, be exciting? Jared Goff has looked competent. He hasn't looked awful. He looks like he knows his coaching staff believes in him, and probably the best offensive line he's stood behind as well. So he has time. He can be patient. He's not being rushed. Going up against Minnesota, where, week 1, they looked like they were never going to lose a game. Then they got humbled. The public is all over Detroit. I'm going with the public in this game. I think that it's a 3 or 4 point game. We're seeing a line still at about 5.5. I also am in love with the over. That might be too obvious here, but what are you seeing on that side?
So this is actually the headliner, and I've locked this one in. It's going to be one of my Superbook picks. I'm taking the Vikings minus 5.5 here. The Vikings I have coming out of the NFC this year. I was that high on Kevin O'Connell coming in and bringing an offensive system. You think of the prehistoric offense it was like a Kubiak-style offense Minnesota had in here. They were not even using Justin Jefferson appropriately. And I know they got dicked down on Monday night by the Eagles. The Eagles have a very good secondary. They're a very good team, as I'm sure we'll get to. Here you do have the public. They are overreacting. Here's your Hard Knocks team. That is a factor as well. Everybody loves Dan Campbell. I love Dan Campbell. By the way, the Lions are very real. If you said any other team had a top overall pick at quarterback who was playing well, top 5 offensive line in the game. By the way, I'm more of a college football guy than an NFL guy anyway. Jameson Williams hasn't even taken the field for Detroit yet. That guy is a stud. Amon-Ra St. Brown.
And you're seeing what Amon-Ra is doing, man. Yep. Like that, they're going to be with DeAndre Swift. Like they're certainly real. They're certainly real.
Yeah.
And I mean, whatever. It's 2 weeks into the year, but they're looking like they could mess around and be a playoff team, be a wild card team.
Oh, yeah.
And who knows, dude, with Green Bay looking how they're looking, and if the Vikings can't remain consistent, they might be knocking on the door and saying, hey, the NFC North might be coming home to Detroit.
Right.
But it's been 2 weeks.
Yeah, so really you'll want to the odds for the division will change drastically through this game. If Detroit wins it and they pick this up, they will take Minnesota's spot as the number 2 team in the NFC North as far as betting odds. So you might want to get Detroit if you think they're going to win. Get them before this game if you think they're going to win the NFC North and make a run there. It's not about the Lions at all. The problem is the Lions still aren't stopping anybody. Bottom 5 defense. What'd you say?
They're plus 760. I just checked.
Yeah, it's a pretty big line right now. That'll drop dramatically if they beat Minnesota. Right now, the problem is Detroit's still not stopping anybody. Bottom 5 overall pass and rush defense, according to Number Fire's metrics here. Yeah. I think that's the difference, is that Minnesota can provide a little bit more they can provide a little bit more resistance in that regard. And by the way, Detroit last year, they're about 20-30% better in terms of our number Fire net expected points model. They're about 20-30% better at home than they were on the road last year, as most teams are. So they've had these fireworks at home. I think they just take a tiny bit of a step back at Minnesota. And it really is something that you hear Sharps talk about 4 years, buying low on Kirk Cousins after a primetime game because we remember that he stinks. But this is where you hide Kirk Cousins into a main slate. He does just well again. Detroit's got a terrible pass defense. I think the Vikings win by at least 7, but I'm not fading the Lions off of that. That's much more so a play on Minnesota and thinking I'm getting value there.
I mean, what would you say at the total? It's at 52.5, and it's floated between 52.5 and I believe 53.5. So it's really stayed in that area. We've seen the Lions give up over 30 in week 1. They give up nearly 30 to the Redskins last week. I do agree with you. I think that the Vikings are going to go crazy on offense, and they do have a little bit more resistance on defense. What's your take on the over-under if you had to there? Now, here's the deal. 81% of the handles on the over Only 53% of the bets, but 81% of the handle is on the over.
Yep, I think the sharps are pounding the over there, and I agree with it. You have a dome setting. Both Cousins and Goff have historically performed better in dome or warm weather climates than outdoor climates. I think it is set up for a shootout. It would not surprise me if the Vikings put up 40 themselves. In this one, depending on how close Detroit can keep it. I do a lot with daily fantasy, so if you like daily fantasy, I think that's a great one to stack, like a Swift
Mm-hmm.
Justin Jefferson mini stack. I think Adam Thielen could have a good bounce back week. He's probably a value play wherever you may end up looking at his props. I really like offense in that game. Yes, is the answer to offense.
Yeah, right. I think there's certainly going to be points. We have so many games to get to. Really quick, let's kind of touch on the Bengals and the Jets.
Yep.
Man, the good for the Jets to come back and get that win. The Bengals have to right the ship. We have Joe Burrow getting off of all social media. A lot of people were talking about Bengals regression this year. I didn't really see it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of seeing it now. The Bengals got to win this game. The Bengals
Yep.
have to win this game. I have their money line in a lay with the Ravens covering, which is looking a little bit more suspect based on the line movement, but the Ravens covering, and then I think the Rams have to cover. But I have those three with the Bengals money line. It's something like plus 443.
Mm-hmm.
But really quick, what do you see between Cincinnati and the Jets?
It classic piranha trap here, where you've got zigzag theory takes you to Cincinnati because Cincinnati
Yeah.
didn't cover last week. Jets obviously
Yep.
did with that miraculous win.
Mm-hmm.
This is all about the number to me. Earlier this week, it was at -4.5 for the Cincinnati Bengals. I liked the Bengals at -4.5 at that number. Now, as it's moving toward the Jets, I'm going to kind of see where it ends up. I saw it pop to 6 today. If it ends up 6.5, 7, I might be more inclined to take the home underdog there just on the spread. But I think the Bengals are a phenomenal teaser. So, like, if you get them down to a pick 'em in a teaser, or if you take their money line as part of a parlay, absolutely Bengals are winning this game. Period. Everything is primed for a blowout for the Bengals. Everyone's talking about their offensive line. They actually have a good pressure rate allowed. It's only 25%. They've just been sacked on a large amount of their pressures. It's kind of unlucky in that regard from their O-line. It's actually playing better than perception. And the Jets' pass defense has been awful to start the season. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins back in the fold. And by the way, second, I mentioned earlier, the Browns have the biggest advantage this week. Their running offensive line against the Pittsburgh D line. Second biggest one is the Bengals rushing offensive line against the Jets. So this could be a Joe Mixon game if you play daily fantasy. I like the Bengals to win. The number is very vital here. I think if I took it right now, if I had to place a wager one side or another, I'd still take the Bengals -6. But if this got to like 6.5, 7, I might think about the Jets.
Okay. I love that approach as well. I book some of these. I sprinkle right when the lines come out, and then I see where I'm going to double down, or if I'm just going to have to wash a bet.
Yeah.
But I take what it first comes out as, just as a tiny little. Let me dip my toe in the water. Another great game. We're going to head over to the NFC East. Eagles, Commanders. I'm on the Commanders. Surprisingly, a lot of the public is on the Commanders. This is a zigzag opportunity.
Yep.
where Washington didn't cover last week against the Lions. The Eagles went crazy. I like the Commanders at home. I like what I've seen from them. I believe it could be a little bit of a shootout. But what are you thinking as far as this goes?
So really, there isn't a division that you can kind of throw the records and the observations out the window more than the NFC East. These games almost always seem to end up close. It shows that against the spread. Home underdogs are absolute cash. By the way, home underdogs in division this year are already 4-1. And that's before the NFC East matchup here, as well as there's one Cowboys and Giants, even though I think the Cowboys are a slight dog as that sits now. But I broke this game down with Krabs earlier on the surgical stream. I really love Washington in this spot too. And I think the reason why is because I am never going to get fair value on Carson Wentz. People hate betting on Carson Wentz, but when you look at number fires adjusted metrics, 0.21 passing net expect points per dropback, that's well above average, top 5 yardage passer. I spoke there. Washington's offense is elite at every level. Now, Krabs, the Commanders fan, told me he's concerned about the center injury. I don't think that's ever, no offensive lineman injury is ever worth more than a half 1 point on the spread. And there is no reason that you would bet the Commanders in this spot other than being contrarian, but I think I have a good offense that I get to support. Jonathan Allen and Cam Curl are back at practice for the Commanders. Those are two huge impact defenders for them. And the Eagles are not going to get more expensive all year than blowing the Vikings out. Good team on Monday night. And Jalen Hurts has looked perfect in 2 games so far. I just don't think that you're going to be able to get the Eagles at a higher price to bet against than now. I like the Commanders. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually won this game outright. But 100%. I like the spread.
100%. I know another dog that you're fond of is going to be in this NFC South game between the Saints and the Panthers. We did just get real quick. Let's fucking go. I don't know if you said you're college football. Are you on Coastal?
I did not bet that game. I would have had Coastal on that side.
Okay, I've Coastal in LA, but I know that you're fond of the Panthers. I would love to take the Panthers. Public is all over the Saints, I believe.
Yeah.
I think at 41, I might even look at the under in this game, which typically isn't a term that you say often with NFC South games. What's your take on the Panthers, and why are you putting your money on them?
So I was actually high on the Saints entering the season. I thought there was value on them to win the division. I love Jameis Winston. I think he's undervalued just because he threw a ton of picks in Tampa. He had that bug come out last week. The problem is now he's got fractures in his back, and he clearly wasn't the same guy last week. And this is just another one of those formulaic spots. I talked about Tennessee when we were talking about Tennessee. Home underdogs, 0-2. They cover 65% against the spread in week 3. This is that spot for the Panthers, but I'd argue the Panthers are playing better. They ran into that Giants defense that's really come out pretty heroically to start the year. I don't think Carolina played awful in that game. Baker is a guy that I've never been a huge fan of. I think he's kind of limited, and the public has a higher perception on him than I do. But at this spot, I think the stock's in the toilet. When you're 0-2, you know, it's one of those situations that formulaically, I feel like I have to plug my nose and land on the Panthers here. It won't be in my Superbook picks. I may not even be betting it, but that's the side that I would have to take here, especially considering what's going on with Jameis.
You don't have to bet on every game. You don't have to bet on every game. As much as our ego may tell us, hey, we have to be the guy that's on the right side here, you don't have to take the bet. And I think that a lot of people in the community could benefit from that mentality of just like, hey, you don't have to take the bet. And my ego gets in my way all the time. And I convince myself this is the play. I'm putting money on it. Sometimes you can watch. Sometimes you can watch and say, I would have been right. I would have been right. Because there are some tough ones out there. That does it for the morning slate. Now let's get into where weird shit happens, the West Coast games. We have the Jags who just shut out Indianapolis. Going into SoFi, I don't know who, like, it's always whoever's playing the Chargers in SoFi, it's going to be essentially an away game for them. I don't know if there are any fans of either of these two teams. We have the Jags playing the Chargers. For some reason, my gut said go for the under here. But now seeing that 77% of the handle, 56% of the public is on that under, hey, maybe it becomes a shootout. Might end up washing my bet here. But this is a 7-point spread. Two teams that covered last week. What are your thoughts on it? The Jags with Doug Peterson look so much better than they have in a while. Great.
So here's your classic pros versus Joe's game here. When you're looking at the money breakdown here, specifically, let me get this up so I get it right. As an educator. So currently 64% of tickets are on the Chargers -7, 61% of the money on the Jags +7. Jags, one of the favorite teams of wise guys. They're already 2-0 against the spread. They're 1-1 against the spread. They gave Washington a tough time. Really, they'd be 2-0 if Washington actually managed the clock properly. They threw that ball to the end zone when a short field goal would have won it. Whatever. I had the
Sure.
Commanders in that game, so whatever, but they were that close to being 2-0 against the spread. Typical pros versus shows. You got to remember, it's been 10 days, so we forget Justin Herbert has that bad rib injury, so bad that he just chucked that ball away and could barely move. That's certainly going to impact Los Angeles's offensive efficiency. I know he threw that seed right after it, but this is not a team that runs the ball particularly well. And the thing is, the Jags, they've been actually pretty mean in the front seven to start this year. Josh Allen's been
Oh
great
yeah.
off the edge. Trayvon Walker looks like a really great pick
Mhm.
for them. And like you
Mhm.
said, Doug Peterson's got the Jags offense moving in the right direction. And the thing about the Chargers is they're still giving up plenty of yards. Their red zone defense is tightened a little bit, but you can move the ball on them. Every sharp that I've talked to loves the Jags +7 here. I'm just kind of locking it in and tailing the smart guys I like by default. But really, when you see a pros versus Joe's breakdown like that, where the public, more tickets are on one side and the money's on the
Yeah.
other, guys, a huge majority of the time, the sharps have that side right. And that's a big number. And it's 7. So you get the touchdown there as well.
100%. Couldn't agree with you more. And that is something that I look for as often as possible.
Yep.
I think reverse line movement with football can be a real thing. There's a lot of stuff, throughout the baseball season. Baseball for me is just as fluke as it gets. Anything can happen. At any time. But follow the money. Follow the money, not the public, the money.
Yep.
Now we're getting into some territory that I'm pretty damn familiar with, and that's NFC West.
Yes,
That's
sir.
Sean McVay against Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona. The Rams cannot cover at all. They have a really poor track record of being a bettors team.
Yeah.
I like the Rams to win. It's at 3.5.
Yeah.
Because McVay does have Kingsbury's number. So the NFC West has a funny dynamic, and I'm sure that you've caught on to it, but McVay cannot beat Shanahan.
Yep.
Shanahan, for whatever reason, has a difficult time against Arizona.
Yep.
And Arizona can't beat the Rams. They're giving it to us at 3.5. I will not be a fan of Kingsbury or Kyler. I think that seeing him shed that sack off of Max Crosby, and I know that it broke your heart as a Raiders fan. The game was over with. Was over with. The Raiders had the dub. Everyone goes home happy, especially Devontae Adams' grandma, who is in attendance. But this is a 3.5 point spread, and everyone is hammering LA. 71% of the bets are on LA, close to half of that handle. And I think this is a game that has kind of stayed in that 3.5 point window, hasn't really wavered a ton. What do you think is going to happen between the Rams and the Cardinals on Sunday?
So inevitably, the public, when they are on sides, they're going to get a few right every single Sunday. I think if they're on Los Angeles here, I think they've got the right side. Right now, Arizona is the worst ranked pass defense as far as number fires, net expected points per drop back. You look at the Rams, they got back on track last week in a big way. Allen Robinson was productive. Cooper Kupp is a machine as far as production from that spot. And their offensive line issues were a bit overstated against Buffalo. We thought, oh no, they lost Andrew Whitworth. Is it going to look like this all season? They got it under control against a pretty average Atlanta pass rush. And Arizona's bringing a similar one as well here. Classic zigzag theory, like you mentioned, backdoor cover last week for the Falcons. And then Arizona with a miracle cover against Vegas. I don't think the public is buying that though in this spot. They realize the Raiders dominated a good portion of that game and the Rams dominated a good portion of that game. So when you look at it from that angle, it's almost like the zigzag would be the other way. But that's why this won't be in my Superbook picks. I probably won't end up laying 3.5. You might think about taking an alt spread with the juice just because it is a 3-point game in division. I mentioned earlier, divisional home dogs are good, but Arizona's a weird team at home. They don't really have that same type of home field advantage, or certainly they don't play to it. If you remember their game against Green Bay last year. So they are not a team that I would want to back in this situation because I ask myself, they were blown off the field by Kansas City. I think the Rams are a better team than Kansas City. I still do. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take just 3.5 points and think they'll do better. I can't get there.
Yeah. Fortunately, the Rams, they were in the zigzag last week.
Yep.
I don't know what the hell happened. But it was against the Falcons who are in this next game that we're going to talk about here. I will be betting on the Rams again.
Yep.
But if they burn me as a Bay Area guy who has hated LA sports my entire life, and I said, you know what? All right, I'll bet on the Dodgers a few times this baseball season. Went 0-4 on my Dodgers
Ooh.
bets. I'm saying, all right, I'll bet on the Rams. One of my best friends, season ticket holder for the Rams. I was in LA watching the Super Bowl with them, got to celebrate with them. I'm already 0-1 on the Rams. If they burn me again, that's it. I'm confident in the Rams.
Yep.
Another team that I'm confident in that's looked unbelievable when you compare it to what they looked like last year, a team that I was really low on,
Yeah.
but I think that they're 2-0 to the spread.
Yep.
I think that they look significantly better than the Seahawks, and that's the Atlanta Falcons.
Yep.
I'm on the Falcons money line.
Yep.
I think they can go into Seattle and get the win here. I know Seattle is a zigzag opportunity. They didn't cover last week, plus they're at home, but the Falcons are starting to roll, and I think they're really confident in themselves. Their defense looks so much better than it did last year. This could be one of my most confident plays, but it might be because I'm looking at the team rather than the number. But
yeah.
I think the books are still low on Atlanta. They're low on Seattle. I like Atlanta to win. What do you think is going to go on between the Falcons and the Seahawks in Seattle?
So you're very confident in that. I'm very confident in the over, and it's the same thought process here. So 41.5 is the total, which to me is mind-blowing for two bottom 9 defenses in number fires adjusted defensive pass ranking. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. But but you think about the Falcons. They're a much more dynamic offense than they were last year, and that's simply Marcus Mariota's ability to move the chains on first down. They have Algier now in the backfield. Kyle Pitts isn't even getting targeted, and he's making a difference. Drake London looks great for them. Their offense is significantly better, and I wish they didn't backdoor cover last week because we probably would have got a better number than we have now. Yeah. But I like the Falcons money line here as well. I think they are the better team. And more importantly, I don't think the Seahawks are a 2-1 team and the Falcons are an 0-3 team. Sometimes the football universe will balance that for us. But here's why I like the over in this game. Because if the Atlanta can get a lead, as I think they will, Seattle plays so slow. When they have the lead, they're just killing clock with Penny, with Ken Walker. Then when they're behind, 12th fastest situation neutral pace. So if Atlanta can get a lead here, Seattle will have to play faster. I think they will have success as well. I wish they would lean on their passing game more. They still have Tyler Lockett. They still have DK Metcalf. Geno Smith was good in some spots last year. I wish they'd lean on it more because I think they'd be a more efficient offense. I love the over here, but as I wrote up, as I picked the score in every game, I do like the Falcons here, who I think are 1-point dogs. Correct, Mush?
Yeah, and it's moved more and more towards the Falcons over the last few days. I think it was 2.5 potentially at one point. But yeah, now that it's just down to 1, not even to pick them, but at 1. All right, couple games left for us, and then it's Thursday Night Football. We got 2 really banged up teams led by 2 first ballot Hall of Famers, argument for the GOAT. Packers, Bucks. Man, I did not expect Brady to look like this. Now it's a lot of injuries on his side of the ball, but he just has not looked great. And I it could be injuries, but man, he's made, plumbers look fine. He's dealt with worse. Packers, Bucks, all of the receivers on both sides of the ball here are banged up. Probably not going to see much of them. Yeah. What is your take on this game? It is a pick 'em.
So here's my theory on the Green Bay Packers, and you can buy it or sell it. I bet them like I would bet a Big Ten football team that was really successful. And I think of it like Ohio State. When they are at home against the Bears or the Lions, that is a different football team when then they go on the road to a physical team, on the road somewhere else, and then they sometimes have a tendency to discombobulate. I love Tampa. Here, -1.5, -2.5, whatever you get. Tampa right now is number fire's best defense, and I totally agree. They just totally blew out the Cowboys, even when they had Dak in the game. And then they totally handled a Saints team that I have a lot of respect for. I was on the Saints +2.5 last week, and that game looked about how I thought it was going to up until, the brawl where all hell broke loose. Tampa's
right.
defense is legitimate. And the thing about Aaron Rodgers is he doesn't have a lot of chemistry with a lot of those guys yet. And it could look a lot like what we saw in that game with Minnesota, where you go on the road, things aren't as seamless, and then Aaron starts eye rolling. He's got body language issues, doesn't trust his young receivers as much as when the crowd is all quiet at Lambeau Field. I see them as two different teams. I think I get great value here with Tampa, and Tampa's offense isn't playing very well right now, but I have more faith in Brady and the weapons at his disposal, even probably definitely no Evans, no Godwin. He'll still have Russell Gage, may have Julio Jones. They still, to me, have more in that arsenal, and the Packers' run defense isn't as strong as Tampa's. So Leonard Fournette could also help carry the load there. Low scoring game. Love the under here. Sharps are on the under, and I like Tampa on the spread.
Great. I'm with you there. I won't speak my piece on this next game because everyone knows my take on the San Francisco 49ers. Yep. Talk about a line that doesn't make sense. It scares the shit out of me. Not getting a lot of respect on Jimmy's side of the ball. Niners are -1.5 against Nathaniel Hackett. I've watched both of the Broncos games, and he does not look competent at all. He doesn't look qualified for the job. They're all rookies, the defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, and Hackett at their position.
Yep.
Horrible clock management. I think, if anything, you have to pay so much more respect to the coaching staff of the San Francisco 49ers going up against this Broncos team. What are you thinking is going to happen Sunday night?
So I want to be very clear when I say this. I full-heartedly believe the 49ers are a much better team, especially now that Garoppolo is the quarterback, than the Broncos are. But I like the Broncos +1.5 here in a very value proposition. Denver, really good home field advantage, especially good in primetime. We haven't seen them a lot there at home since Peyton Manning retired, but a tremendous advantage there historically. Look, you want some numbers on how bad Nathaniel Hackett's been so far? Denver leads the league in penalties, and they lead the league in timeouts taken before the 2-minute warning. It's because they are discombobulated. They forgot to put a punt returner on the field last week. That scares the death out of me taking Denver here because they just make critical game-losing mistakes. But I like the spot here for Denver in that it almost feels like they lost twice, right? Because they were so close with Houston. This team doesn't look anything like what we thought they were going to, whereas the 49ers looked phenomenal last week. And I like them long-term moving forward, but Denver's a good matchup for them because Denver's moving the ball well between the 20s right now. That's kind of where San Francisco at times can be leaky. And then I think about all of Denver's talented skill personnel. Well, if George Kittle's healthy, Denver has Justin Simmons. If Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel's outside, they have Patrick Surtain. They have a good pass rush with Bradley Chubb, Trent Williams. This is a fun game. I can't wait to watch it. Personally, I think it's a good spot for Denver. Do I think it's in my Superbook picks just because it checks every single box for me. I got a home dog that's 0-2 against the spread. I've got a better quarterback at home, but I like the 49ers long-term this season now that Jimmy G's in the fold. I think it's just a good spot for Denver is all.
Sure. I do believe in the Broncos' ability on the defensive side of the ball. I don't think I can physically, spiritually, emotionally handle us losing to Russell Wilson off of the Seahawks on this shitty Denver team. Wrapping it up, and then we got some people in chat to get back to here. Monday night, Cooper Rush and those Cowboys heading into Brian Daboll's New York Giants home. I love to see what Daboll's done with the Giants. I was on the over, and I don't know why they weren't feeding Saquon the ball more. They were not able to move the ball at all, unfortunately. Do you think that the Cowboys can strike some magic twice here and get a win in New York? I could see it happening. Just because, the Cowboys defense isn't horrendous. But what do you think goes on in this NFC East matchup?
Let me ask you a question. You think the Giants are a 3-0 team?
And I agree with what you're saying. I don't think that they're a 3-0 team. Do I think Cooper Rush is a 2-0 quarterback, though?
Yeah, that's a great take. That's a great take in return. Here's where I think this game is decided, though. Giants currently are seating the third largest pressure rate. Daniel Jones is under assault every time he drops back there. Dallas's defense has been phenomenal this year. That huge 35% pressure rate, DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons, that is the strength of their team. There's no one I hate betting on in the NFL more than Mike McCarthy. But I'm actually thinking, I mentally am putting myself in a spot where I'm betting on Dan Quinn in that defense here against Daniel Jones and a group of wide receivers that is just all in flux. I mean, they're playing undrafted rookies over Kenny Galladay. We don't really know who's going to be out there, and that makes it hard for Jones to get chemistry with any of those guys. It's why they've really squeaked out 2 wins against 2 teams that now it doesn't look that impressive. Tennessee looks like they're in shambles, and Carolina's 0-2 as well. I don't think the Giants keep it going. I am betting on math and regression here. I like Dallas +1. I'd even take them at -1 or 2. I think they win outright, and I'm taking this in my Superbook just because I think their defensive line dominates the game.
Yeah, you're going to find me betting on the under. That's all I'll say. You're going to find me definitely taking the under without a doubt and full confidence.
If we're doing fantasy start sits here,
38.
What'd you say?
I said even if it's at 38.5, whatever it is, I'll be betting the under. That's a 20-17 game if I've ever seen one.
If we're doing fantasy start sits, if the Cowboys are somehow still on your waiver wire, grab them for your defense this week. They are going to put up at least 4 sacks. I wrote that up in my bold predictions column as well. I feel good about that one.
That is a phenomenal take. That's a phenomenal take. Let's kind of go through a little bit of chat here. We have a guy asking Kareem Hunt or Allen Robinson in half PPR.
Wow.
It's almost decision time for the guy. The kickoff is in 10 minutes. I would say Allen Robinson. What about you?
It's PPR. I would lean Robinson as well, just because he's on the field basically every snap, whereas you don't really know what Hunt's workload will look like tonight. You're in a good spot if you're deciding between those two guys, because their starts in most 10-12 leagues. So that's a good team he's got.
Yeah, I'm forced to start A-Rob this week. I have so many injuries across my receiving core.
Yep.
Quick review for the Bills and Dolphins.
Yep.
I am on the Dolphins to cover. I'm on the Dolphins money line when I think 93% of the public is on the Bills. And I like the Dolphins already. That just makes me feel all warm and fuzzy. I believe you are as well, right, Austin?
Yep. I'm going to say this again just in case you missed it earlier, because it's a really cool stat. 4 teams since the start of 2006 have covered by at least 20 points in the first 2 weeks of the season, just like Buffalo has. All 4 of them ended up losing against the spread in week 3. Not one of them covered. I like the Dolphins +5.5 as well. I'm hoping to get it around 6.5 though, if I bet it.
So is that just week 2 into week 3?
Yep.
That statistic?
Yep.
Okay, I'm definitely going to be coming to you for week by week systems like that. We're just asking for maybe your resources, if you don't mind. Chat, if you guys have some questions for Sir Swaim or myself, please feel free to fire them away. We're about 7 minutes away from kickoff. We're going to be sweating the game out. If you guys want to come right back, I'm going to get myself ready. For that. Bills versus Dolphins last year, 35-0. Can't compare the teams. We got Jet from Zillion Sigs, Jeff Wilson or DJ Moore at the flex
spot. Wilson's the higher floor guy there now, especially since Ty Davis Price now out with an ankle injury.
Mm-hmm.
Dang, I don't know what just happened there. I don't know. I guess my lights just kicked out right there, but quick. But Wilson's the higher floor guy. DJ Moore definitely higher ceiling. His air yards look good per usual, starting to score touchdowns. So it really just depends what you need from your particular method. If you are projected to win by quite a bit, I'd go with Wilson. If you need a higher ceiling, I'd go with DJ Moore.
Now we're doubling down on Jeff Wilson or Damian Harris. Ooh. I personally, I would go Wilson for that matchup. It's tough for me to ever back a running back in a Belichick scheme. What do you feel?
The Ravens' run defense is the strength of their defense, so you get a timeshare into that matchup. I would rather have Wilson as well, even though Denver's not a cupcake matchup, but I'd rather have Wilson too.
Hey, base DVRO. Yeah, did your spotlight went out or something?
I think so. It might be toast.
Might be toast. Base DVRO or base to VRO. Acres could be some of that you just dropped, to be honest. You might hang on to him for a few more weeks, but I think it's looking like they've made up their mind in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
His pass protection ability is just not up to par to be on the field. But what do you see, Austin?
It's so weird what they're doing with Akers. Actually outtouched Henderson 15-10 last week. He played more snaps. I actually traded 4 Akers from Josh Jacobs just because I think Akers has a path to a 3-down role. I don't know if I would start him in this particular matchup unless I was really desperate. Like, I am desperate in a league. James Conner's banged up, so I am starting Cam Akers, but he's not a guy that I feel good about. I saw someone else in chat said Akers or Darrell Henderson. I definitely would start Akers of the two because it's leaning that way. Look, the Rams, they realize that if they are going to get where they need to be, they need the Cam Akers from 2 years ago. So they're probably going to put their eggs in that basket. Henderson has battled injuries. He's not a guy that they're going to give 60-65% of the snaps to. Akers is the guy that they are going to invest in. And both Mush and I think this is a positive script for LA. So I think that really adds to the viability of Cam. I don't think he's a horrific start. It's not like the worst start you could make in the world this week.
Garrett Wilson or Allen Robinson now. I'm going Garrett Wilson, man. And I don't know if that one's as close personally, especially at home now he gets to shine. I can see Garrett Wilson getting more than 10 targets once again. And Allen Robinson still the second option. But I think that Allen Robinson, I would love for him to heat up, man. I want to see him shine. He deserves it. But I think as far as that's concerned this week, I would say go with Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Wilson's just probably going to be in a better script. You and I both like the Rams to be ahead, and when the Rams are ahead, they definitely run the ball a ton, whereas Wilson will probably be in a negative script, and he's a really good player. Like, he showed that last week. He had the best connection with Flacco, so you have to think that 30+% target share is going to stay with him moving forward. I think Wilson's a good start. He's a good DFS play this week. I like Garrett Wilson a lot.
Awesome, man. Awesome. We got a couple more here. Josh Jacobs or Bateman. Interesting. You said that you just traded away Jacobs.
Yeah.
He's going up against Tennessee. We have Bateman going up against the Patriots. Personally, I'm going Bateman.
Yeah.
If I had to.
Absolutely. I'm going Bateman. Here's the problem with Jacobs right now. He doesn't have a defined spot where you think you're getting fantasy points from him. He's getting subbed out at the goal line for Brandon Bolden. He's not playing any third down snaps whatsoever. That's Bolden and Amir Abdullah. You're really counting on Jacobs to break a big run on first or second down because that's the role he's been getting so far. He was in a positive script last week and didn't really come through. The Raiders' offensive line's bad. I like Bateman.
Yep, I would have to agree with you wholeheartedly there, brother. We got Zillion Siggs again. What is a one potential teaser leg you think is best to stay off of?
Oh, yeah.
Let me pull up the teaser numbers on
I know.
end. Yeah, teaser to stay away from.
I got to go with the Chargers 6 or 7 point teaser. I do think it's possible Jacksonville wins that game outright. I think they're a lot closer than public perception. To me, that's your classic pros versus Joe spot. If you want to look at spots to avoid for teasers, look at teams getting public tickets, but private sharp money. That's a spot to avoid in teasers.
Let's see here. Yeah, I would have to agree with you there. One to stay away from. Jeez Louise. I don't know. I think the Rams could blow out the Cardinals. I know that it's at home, but I think that they can blow them out. I know it's at +9.5, but we'll have to see. And dude, everything is scaring me about the Niners, man. Everything is scaring me about the Niners. Claypool over half a rushing yard. Is that for real, Cap?
Oh, that's my guy. That's my guy, Ben. He's another Denverite. That's a good line. I do think Pittsburgh tonight gets the ball in Claypool and Pickens' hands creatively. Those guys are their big playmakers, might drop a flea flicker or something. They have talked all week in the Pittsburgh media about how they are not getting those guys involved downfield. I know it's windy, but I like that bet from Ben because you get him on an end around, Claypool dives forward for a couple of yards and it's cashed. I think they will look to get the ball in his hands.
Absolutely. All right, brother. We're 1 minute from kickoff. I'm going to kind of flip things around. We got Thursday night coming at us. Man, super appreciative of you hopping on. We're definitely going to be doing this again, hopefully quite regularly if you are available. So much knowledge dropped. Couldn't be more thankful for you, brother. And let's have a profitable weekend, huh?
Yeah, Mush, you are the man. I love you guys in chat, even though you call me corporate and tell me my background sells, but it's okay. I love you guys back anyway. It was fun hanging with you, buddy.
Hell yeah, man. All the best to you. Chat, we'll be back in a bit to sweat this game out. Much love. Take care of yourselves. First you sprink it, then you bink it. We'll be seeing. Take care.
Yes, sir.